Holy hell. What a weekend of sports it was, specifically college football. Insane week. The number one team lost. The number four team lost. The number nine team lost. Number 10 team lost. Number 11 team lost. Hockey's back. Baseball's going crazy. Shout out to the Detroit Tigers. The Gritty Tigs making a run at it. I'm here with you on this fine Thursday evening. I'm by myself. I'm getting ready. I'm getting packed up to go to Dallas in the morning. So there is absolutely no time to waste tonight. Let's strap in.
It's time to wake up and check what's brewing. Welcome to Coffee and Cups, your Sunday morning sportscast with your hosts, Chris and Derek.
I'm Chris. I'm your host and your co-host tonight. I got a nice glass of Jefferson Ocean, voyage number 23. Taste the ocean. I will be taking this with me to Dallas this weekend because something's got to chill me out. I'm jacked up. I'm ready to go. Before we start, do want to give a quick shout out, as always, to our fantastic partner, Synergy Coffee Chicago. Make sure you use the code Cups and Coffee 10 for a 10% discount when you check out at synergycoffeechicago.com. Make sure that's in all caps. Again, Cups and Coffee 10 for a 10% discount to all of our fantastic listeners. All right. It's Thursday night. I'm here. I'm in Chicago. You're live with just me. A lot of things to talk through. This will probably be mainly a college football show. Maybe we'll talk about the NFL a bit, but as I mentioned in the introduction, it was an absolutely chaotic weekend of football. So we'll jump right into it with the upsets. One upset / not upset, however you want to call it, that we talked about. Texas A&M number 25 over Missouri number 9. Texas A&M was favored by a couple of points, but still being ranked 16 lower, I think still is a pretty big upset. I know they were at home. Kyle Field always gets that home field advantage, but I really don't know if this says more about A&M being that good or Missouri being a complete fraud. But regardless of how you look at it, this shakes up the SEC massively. We're in a situation now where we could see, after all these years, the Texas A&M rivalry being brought back, we could see them face each other 2 weeks in a row. There is a scenario in which you pay $2,500 for a ticket to go watch Texas and Texas A&M at Kyle Field at the end of November, and they play in the SEC championship in Atlanta the very next weekend. And so a lot of craziness there. Luther Burden, supposed to be a top 5 pick, has been absent most of the year. He did have one of his better games, 7 receptions for 82 yards. But he has been, he's obviously been touted as probably the top receiver to go in this class after a big year last year where he had 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. I mean, he does have 4 touchdowns so far, so he's not completely off pace there, but 339 yards through their first 5 games. I believe they have played 5 games. They have. And so he's had 1 game over 100 yards, 2 games with no touchdowns. He's not playing horrible, but we came out thinking Missouri was going to be a playoff contender. And this is what we warned about, is Missouri's probably not that team. Now, they do have an extremely easy schedule. And so there's a chance that they could, still go on a run here at the end of the season and be in that college football playoff contention. But I don't think this team is very good. They got UMass at UMass. They play Auburn at home. They do get Bama. That'll be a tough one, I think, another loss for them. Then they play Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. This team could finish 9-3, 10-2, and again, still be in contention around there at the end of the season. And so that's the thing with the SEC is you're gonna have the strength of schedule, even if you have one of the easiest schedules in the conference. You still, you beat a ranked Boston College team. You beat a Vanderbilt team who now has beaten Alabama. You get a chance to play Alabama. You get a chance to play Oklahoma at home. We'll see how it goes. They're not impressing me much, and I think Brady Cook has a little bit of Drew Aller syndrome right now. So, this is his fifth year on campus. Had a big year last year with over 3,300 yards and 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And we're 5 games into the season, and he's got 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns. So he's on pace to throw about 12 touchdown passes this year and maybe 2,500 yards. And so obviously very concerning there. I know last year, if you remember, Brady Cook got booed his first game. I believe it was his first game or maybe just first home game starting for Missouri. And Eli Drinkowitz went on a rampage at the press conference, and rightfully so. And then they went on this run and were a really good team. And then, we kind of see that overhype into this year. And I was really afraid of that for them because again, they have Luther Burden. Brady Cook was, I think last year was the best you're going to see of him. And unfortunately, that became the standard that they were looking for. And it just didn't happen. Now, on the other end, we have maybe a quarterback controversy or the end of a quarterback controversy at Texas A&M. I think we were all expecting Marcel Reed to start. He's been pretty good in replacement of Connor Weigman over the last few weeks. But Connor Weigman came out and was just under 90% completion percentage, 276 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 94 QBR. He was fantastic. Not having to put the ball in the end zone and beating a top 10 team, albeit a fraudulent top 10 team, 41-10. That's a good day at the office. 3 touchdowns from Le'Veon Moss, 138 yards. Amari Daniels, 34 yards and 2 touchdowns. 236 total yards for this team on the ground. I mean, I don't want to say delightfully surprised because I hate Texas A&M, but they showed some gut and some grits. I know they're a big proponent, as some other schools, of early season hype, and then you hit the mid-year lull, and then some years it goes haywire, some years it's great. They're just kind of a weird program with that, so we'll see if they can sustain it. Connor Weigman, obviously, if you're putting him back in off that injury and not staying with Marcel Reed, who had some success while Weigman was out, we're saying that's your guy. And I've already seen Marcel Reed on several lists of SEC players potentially in the transfer portal by the end of the year. So quarterback controversy averted or created, depending on which way you want to look at it, because Weigman didn't do anything to lose his job, and then Marcel Reed did. Well, actually, Weigman did do something to lose his job. He was not good in the first 2 games. He was 12 for 30 against Notre Dame for 100 yards, 2 interceptions. Notre Dame's good, but meh. McNeese State, 11 for 14, 125 yards. Meh. So I was definitely surprised by that decision by Elko. Can't think of his first name, but coming in from Duke, I was curious how he was going to handle the pressure of being at a program like Texas A&M, and he said all the right things to his players and the boosters and everybody so far. And so I'm rooting for Mike Elko. I'm not rooting for the Aggies because they are a bunch of cultist weirdos. If you ever just want to be weirded out by college dudes, go watch their yell leaders and their yell practice. It's freaking weird, dude. I mean, these guys are nut jobs. I don't know how you can be self-respecting and be a yell leader at Texas A&M. Hit me in the comments. Let me know. What are your thoughts on the yell leaders at Texas A&M? I think it's weird. I think it's culty. I think it's annoying as hell. But it's working right now. Kyle Fields buzzing. Uh, I don't know. I think again, I knew Missouri was a bit fraudulent, and now the jury's out on Texas A&M. They're certainly going to be in the talks for the playoffs as of now if they continue on this run. They've already got one loss. They can't afford but maybe one more. So I don't know. They're a legitimate team. I still don't see them as a championship contender, but they're going to be right there at the end. They got Mississippi State. They get LSU at home, at South Carolina, New Mexico State, Auburn, all extremely winnable games. Then you finish the season at home against Texas. I mean, things are looking like they're in place for Mike Elko to have a damn good first season in Texas at Texas A&M. And the fortunate part about not going to the SEC earlier is I've only had to listen to the Oklahoma and Texas ridiculousness. Now I got to listen to the Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M Texas ridiculousness, and that shit's exhausting. So good for them. I'd love for them to be on a high horse and then just beat the doors off of them at home. Obviously, that generally doesn't happen in rivalry games, just because the emotions are so high and things end up being closer than they should. We'll move on from them and we'll talk about some more online Twitter, Instagram, whatever ridiculousness, specifically with the SEC conference. I'm sure it's the algorithm, the moogly googlies deciding what ads and pages to give me. But ever since Texas came to the SEC, there's like a couple pages. One's like an SEC Southeastern Conference Facebook page, and the shit people post in there is just it's it's mind blowing. I can't even tell if like I get in there on any given day just for fun on like when I'm getting around in the morning, and it's just like half of me is just appalled, half of me is angry. Well, that would be 100%, but part of me is appalled, part of me is angry, part of me is just like, what do these people do? You get like 80-year-old Betty is just absolutely taking a dump down a 13-year-old's throat on Facebook about if Tennessee actually beat Oklahoma a couple weeks ago, or like we're talking about Kalen DeBoer's shirts and how Alabama's screwed for eternity because of Kalen DeBoer's shirts, and Nick Saban would never do that. And it's just, I don't know, I could go on a rant forever for that. Maybe like next week we'll do a segment where I just read through some SEC comments on the internet because it's just mind-numbing stuff. Maybe I'll do that after the game this weekend. I don't know. I think it'll be some fun there though, because like I said, people are just wild, wild, wild. Like it's an election year, and we're not even like, God bless that we're fighting over SEC football, like good old fashioned Americans. But I don't know, man. I don't know what these people do for a living. I don't know what they eat for breakfast. I don't know what they're doing at 2:30 in the morning posting on Facebook, but I I guess the commercials are right. It just means more in the SEC because these people, you'll never tell them that they are not the head coach and quarterback and athletic director at their favorite university. You just won't, because in their head they are. And that's okay because it's 2024 and that's fine. Anyway, I'm gonna move it along to the one I just mentioned, Vanderbilt, 40-35 over Alabama. There were more Alabama fans than Vanderbilt fans there, which is wild. But nonetheless, they ripped down that damn goalpost. They took it to the river. The cops quickly came and pulled it out of the river. They paid their $100,000 fine gladly for storming the field. And now we're here. And now we're saying, is Vanderbilt good at football? They're 3-2 now. Diego Pavia is a bona fide superstar there in Nashville, Tennessee. And the world is not what it seems. And now one thing I want to start out by saying is Bad game by Bama, right? We're not gonna argue that. For anybody saying that it takes Jalen Milroe out of the Heisman race, that part of it's nonsense, right? We can we can have a logical conversation and be adults about this game and still come out to the conclusion that Bama had a terrible game. And was it embarrassing? Yeah. I would say you haven't lost to Alabama in 40, or you haven't lost to Vanderbilt in 40 years. They're terrible every year. You have more fans than them in their own home stadium. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's not a good look for Kalen DeBoer. And this is what we were concerned about coming into the season, is that you look at what Kalen DeBoer's done in his career. He's won everywhere he went. He went to Washington, brought them back to a national championship when they had no business over the last couple decades. You know, they had the one college football playoff appearance, but no business really being in the national championship conversation for a long time. And he brought that culture. And he comes to Bama, and now he has all the money and recruiting tools and everything that he needs. And it's going to take a minute, right? He had a lot of guys decommit, but he also had a lot of guys that weren't committed under Saban that committed. And so Alabama's going to be fine. You have to let it be fine, right? Nick Saban is Nick Saban, and to say, "Oh, this would never," Nick Saban wouldn't do this. eh, Congratulations. What are we even talking about here? Are we going to go to hockey, and see somebody shit the bed on a breakaway and be like, "Well, Wayne Gretzky would never do that." Well, yeah, that's why his nickname is literally the Great One. He's the greatest player to ever play. Saban is the greatest coach to ever step on a college football field. Like, am I missing something here? I know the standard is high, and the standard is the standard. I'm absolutely not saying we lower the standard at all for Alabama, but give the dude 2 seconds to breathe, right? He loses one game, albeit a really bad game, and we're already talking we're bashing the guy for the shirt he was wearing on the sideline, and we've bullied him into now wearing a tucked in polo at his press conference. And next we're gonna bully him into wearing Nick Saban's khakis and living in Nick Saban's basement. And like, Alabama's gonna drive themselves to be less successful if we act like this, because at the end of the day, you have to let the coach be the coach. You can't, it's like you go through a breakup, right? And you had this great, beautiful ex-girlfriend, and you're now you try every relationship you try to get, and you're like, it has to be the same mirror image, right? You got to dress like you and look like you and walk like you and talk like you. Like, no, that shit's weird, man. It's weird. If you want to build a doll of Nick Saban and have him follow you around, do that. Go do your weirdness somewhere else. This is college football. Kalen DeBoer is a fantastic coach. Shut up. Malachi Moore, outburst, unacceptable. That would never happen under Nick Saban. No, it did. He had a player in, I think, 2012 try to fight us like a strength coach on the sideline. It's a program built around passion and excellence. People are going to be pissed off. Was it right what Malachi Moore did? No. Did they play like garbage on defense? Is their defense super predictable right now? Yeah, relax. It's a 12-team playoff. The season's not over. They're still going to win games. You have Jalen Milroe, who's a Heisman candidate. Running back room, you don't have that standout that you've had in the past, but you have some depth at the running back room. Plus, you have Milroe, who can get you 50 to 60 to 70 yards on an average day if he needs to. You have a 17-year-old that might be the best receiver in college football, and the other best receiver in college football might be Jeremiah Smith, another freshman. I don't think maybe Ryan Williams is the best wide receiver in football, but the talent level, the way he's able to control his body and make those catches and tiptoe the sideline is just as good as anybody I've seen out there. He should be going to his like snow coming dance here in a couple months, but instead he's sitting here with 544 yards and 6 touchdowns in the SEC. Kid is ridiculous. This team is good. Relax. And also Diego Pavia, that dude is just must-see television. The way he's running around like their favorite player, Johnny Manziel. He watches the Johnny Manziel, the full game of A&M upsetting Alabama before every game, from my understanding. Weird guy. And then I loved his post-game interview. You know, uh, all praise to God. And then he starts just dropping stuff on there. And then he came back on Twitter later and was like, sorry for that, and whatnot. But that dude was fired up, and you love to see the passion. And this is what college football is all about. Anybody can win on any given Saturday, and it's exciting. He threw for 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 56 rush yards. Was just fantastic, and he was 80% passing too. Just a really solid performance. Is Vanderbilt good? Nah, not really, but they're good enough to pull up this upset. They got Kentucky, they got Ball State, they got Texas at home, they got Auburn, South Carolina, and then they finished pretty rough at LSU and versus Tennessee. It's probably a 6-6 team still, but damn, they gave us a good show this weekend. And then they put the icing on top, playing on the video board after the game, the video of Nick Saban earlier this year with Pat McAfee saying everywhere in the SEC is tough to play except for Vanderbilt, which is fair. Again, there were more Alabama fans than Vanderbilt fans, so from an atmosphere perspective, yes, but just really poor timing on that one. Going back to Jalen Milroe, does that drop him down in the Heisman standings a little bit? Yeah. He still threw for 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 turnover, had a rushing touchdown. It was a meh performance, obviously. He was never going to live up to, coming off that Georgia game. He had skyrocketed to, he was the unquestioned in some eyes, number 1 quarterback in the draft this year. So we can bring that back down to earth. He's still going to be one of the first 3 quarterbacks off the board. He's going to be a first-round pick. Immensely physically gifted, smart kid, been in the program, believes in the program, and he's gonna be fantastic. So I don't have a ton of worries on defense. Again, they're a bit predictable, and that's it for the most part. There, I think they have the talent, and they've made plays, but just on a down by down basis, they're struggling a bit, and it's going to happen from time to time, but you have seen it building over the past few weeks. Vanderbilt was able to put up 418 yards on Alabama, 26 first downs. They were 12 for 18 on third downs, 1 for 1 on fourth downs. But this is a team that just looked good overall. They dominated time of possession, 42 minutes and 8 seconds to 17 minutes and 52 seconds. You can't beat anybody in the SEC with that time of possession. They didn't turn the ball over. They played a clean game, 3 penalties for 20 yards. I mean, they did what they needed to do. You keep the ball out of the playmakers' hands, and then you take a defense that, again, has talent, but has been a little bit meh from time to time, and you make them play way more snaps than they want to play. Way more snaps than they want to play. So shout out to Vanderbilt. Again, I think this is a 6-6 team. They'll probably end up going 3-4 the rest of the season, maybe 4-3 and end up 7-5. They'll make a bowl game. Good for Vanderbilt, good for Nashville. Because Nashville's got to be a damn awesome city to have a college in. Like, can you imagine living in Nashville, Tennessee, and being just like having a sick football team? If they could recruit and they could have a great football team, that would be a premier destination. SEC, Nashville, Tennessee, cool colors. If you care about that, great academic standards, that matters, kids. Could be a premier program. It's not going to be, but I think it'd be cool. I'd love to go there and and have a time with them. I don't know how fun it is, but it seems like it could be fun to me. Anyway, I'll let the Bama one sit from here. I'm sure if you're any sort of sports fan, you've seen 150 memes, 13 ESPN clips of people saying wild stuff, 8,000 TikToks. You've gotten your fill of this game, and as you should. Great game, great fun. Shout out to the Commodores for a game that they will remember forever, and these kids will be remembered for forever. And Alabama is, we're gonna get back to work, baby. They're not hanging their heads. They can't afford to hang their heads. They've already had Georgia, but they got a gauntlet coming up too. You got South Carolina this week. You're at Tennessee, then you're home against Missouri, and then you're at LSU. Easy non-conference with Mercer. You get 18 Oklahoma at Oklahoma, and then Auburn. So October into November is going to be tough. But again, I think this is a team probably finishes 10-2. I'll say I like LSU pulling off an upset there. I think they beat Tennessee. I think they beat Missouri. I think they beat Oklahoma. I like maybe LSU to pull off an upset there. One of the best rivalries in the SEC and college football. Game time has not been decided yet. I hope that's a night game. Any sort of night game at Death Valley is just it's college football cinema. They get it rocking. They got the tiger eye at midfield, and it's just it's a whole lot of fun. They're 4-1. They're looking better. They're on a roll. Like I said, Garrett Nussmeier is a pretty fantastic quarterback. I don't think skill wise, he's one of the top 3 or 4 guys, but statistically, he's playing right up there with guys like Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. He's putting up the stats, and so yeah, I think it's exciting. I think you'll see him Nussmeier face off against Jackson Dart this weekend. Again, a home game at night, 6:30 kickoff against Ole Miss. I mean, we're here, folks. I know we had some good games, some upsets in these first couple weeks, but with these new super conferences, I mean, weeks 5 through 10 with that 1 week in between with the non-conference games is just an absolute gauntlet every week. I mean, this week and next week are 2 of the best weekends of football potentially we're ever going to see in the regular season format. So kudos to Vanderbilt again. I'm going to keep giving them their flowers, and we'll keep it rolling. Another upset. We're just going to keep it going with the upsets. We're going to keep it going with the SEC. Tennessee loses a late one to Arkansas, and now we get into kind of the same Ole Miss conversation with Tennessee. Like, okay, cool. We saw you put up 70 points against Chattanooga. You got the great quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, Jackson Dart. You're going to throw it all around the field. You're going to look dominant. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. And they did earlier. They took out Oklahoma, who is no slouch. They're a top 20 team as well. They're an SEC opponent, so no slouch there. But now we start to see, they're going to come back down to earth a little bit. And I'm not overly concerned about Tennessee. I'm not Colin Cowherd, who 2 weeks ago said to Joel Klatt, this is the number 1 team in the country, definitively. Thought that was a bit outlandish. Joel Klatt thought that was outlandish too, as he damn well should. But a 19-14 loss to the unranked Arkansas Razorbacks. Again, we can kind of look at this like Texas A&M and Missouri. Is Tennessee way overrated, or is Arkansas not a bad football team? And I think, frankly, I think the A&M Missouri game was almost more of an indictment on Missouri. This one, a 5-point game, a really thrilling game. I don't think this says a ton about Tennessee. I still think they're a top 10 team. They're a playoff team. I have them in my playoff. But Arkansas is not bad either. They're 4-2. Nothing stood out from this game from them. You look at their passing stats between their 2 quarterbacks. They had 297 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 134 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Nothing stands out, but they did the same thing to Tennessee. Nico Iamaleava, 158 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Dylan Sampson had a big game, as he's had almost every game this year, 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. But other than that, this was just an SEC slugfest. Again, another night game in a big time old school SEC program, and Arkansas showed out in front of their faithful. I don't think Arkansas is going to go on a run either, but I don't think theirs was as much of a fluke as Vanderbilt. You know, Arkansas has already lost to Oklahoma State, who we've seen kind of fall from grace a bit. They lost a close one to Texas A&M, but they beat Auburn. They beat Tennessee, so they got 2 SEC wins already. They're 2-1 in the SEC. You know, I don't know what to think about Arkansas. I got one of my guys at work, big Arkansas fan. I'll ask him what he's thinking, how he's feeling. But good team, not great team. Not going to be must see TV. I think Tennessee is still must see TV because of Nico Iamaleava, and also they have one of the greatest names in college football. Shout out to receiver Chaz Nimrod. If that name doesn't get you going, I don't know what will. He had 2 catches. He didn't make an impact on the game, but his name is Chaz Nimrod. Tell me you don't want to get that tattooed as a Tennessee fan, or even not as a Tennessee fan. Regardless, I like Nico a lot. I like this team to bounce back. It's going to be a tough road, most certainly. But I think this is a team that you're going to see improve a lot throughout the year. And so I'm not overly worried about them. They obviously have Alabama still on the schedule. They have Georgia still on the schedule. I think they'll split those two. Other than that, it's not a bad. They got Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State, UTEP, Vanderbilt. So 10-2 team. I think you can write their ticket to the college football playoff as well, because the SEC is going to send 6 teams, and then we'll see what they're made of. We'll see what they can do in that pressure packed situation with Josh Heupel. And then the last upset of the day, and again, similar to the first one, not fully an upset. Michigan was number 10 in the country. Washington was unranked, but Washington was also favored. It was a home game. We obviously know Michigan struggles to score, and so I think the bettors favor the offenses. Sometimes you see some of these good defensive teams maybe getting sold a little bit short on their team, but I got to come on and say it. I was completely wrong about Michigan. They got smoked by Texas. We knew that. We felt that when we were there, but I genuinely thought this was a team that was really going to improve throughout the year and kind of figured out a quarterback, and that has not happened at all. Davis Warren gets benched. Alex Orji comes out, throws for 32 yards in a win against USC. Comes out, does more, nothing, goes 3 for 7 in this game for 15 yards. And then we put in Jack Tuttle. It's like, okay, we got a 6th, 7th year guy looking a little all right. He goes 10 for 18, but this dude can't get it done either. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. This team is not finding themselves. And not only they're not finding themselves, they're continually looking worse on defense, which is obviously what they've prided themselves on. Yeah, just I don't even know at this point. No identity. Khalil Mullings has been the bright spot. Donovan Edwards has, hit a couple home runs. He had 14 carries for 95 yards, busted off a long run in this game. Mullings had 49 yards. I just don't even know what to do with this team at this point. They just cannot put it together. And I know a lot of the reason the defense is struggling is because they're on the field so damn much. And obviously the defense can't control that. And I think that's the frustrating part. But you have these talented guys. You have, Will Johnson on the back end. You have your 2 defensive tackles that are going to be top 20 picks in the middle. And sorry, I can't think of their names right now. It's like 11 o'clock at night. But you have talent around this defense. They won the time of possession battle this game. Barely, but they won the time of possession battle. And they just can't do anything. I mean, this is a team. They had 174 rushing yards. They had 287 total yards. 40 yards in penalties, so minus the penalties, they had 247 yards of total offense. Meanwhile, Washington had 429 yards of total offense, over 300 passing, just over 100 on the ground, 23 first downs. I can't wrap my head around how this good of a team can't figure it out. And again, we'll go back to, yes, they lost Jim Harbaugh, they lost Jesse Minter, they lost JJ McCarthy, they lost 18 players to the draft. They lost Keon Saab to Alabama. Get it. But you can't just show up and be like, yeah, I'm sorry, probably gonna be a few years. I don't know. I mean, when I kind of knew, and I didn't want to admit it, when I kind of knew this season was probably done for them, was the USC game, and I was watching that one, and they got the ball back with like 5 minutes left, down a couple points to USC on inside their own 20, and it took them like a minute and a half to run 2 plays. They ran 2 plays for like 2 or 3 yards at a minute and a half. And then luckily Khalil Mullings busted off a 63-yard run. And then they had the last 2 minutes to get 20 yards, and they took damn near every second of it. I think they scored with, less than 30 seconds left. And I was like, holy. Like, if that's not an indictment when you say, hey, I need a score. I got 4 minutes left. And I can't even throw the ball. Like the JJ McCarthy game where they ran it 32 times in a row, we all knew that wasn't because of McCarthy. You had your offensive coordinator coaching. You didn't have Jim Harbaugh. It was a weather game. You didn't need it. You were getting everything you needed on the ground. And you knew you had JJ McCarthy, who was a little banged up, but was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's a first-round draft pick. But this was just like literally running the ball in a 4-minute offense, just running dive right, off tackle left, was with a fullback in for some of the plays. That was better than them saying, Alex Orji, can you throw me a 10-yard out? Can you throw me a speed out? Can you throw me a post? Can you throw me something? He's like, nah, I'm good, man. Good news is Dave Portnoy said he'll donate $3 million a year, up to $3 million a year, and he only wants to work directly with Sharon Moore, not the boosters, to get them a quarterback. So maybe they'll get somebody crazy out of the transfer portal. I don't know. Maybe they'll get Jackson Arnold. Maybe they'll get DJ Lagway. Maybe they'll get Marcel Reed from Texas A&M. But I said it earlier, and I know they're 4-2, right? This is not. It's not like they're gonna not make a bowl game or anything. But I don't remember what episode Derek and I talked about. At what point are we going to put Jaden Davis in? It cannot be worse than this. And it's not like the NFL where you're going to stunt his growth by throwing him in some games. That doesn't really happen a ton in college football. It does once in a while, but it's usually somebody that's going to peter out anyway, like Tate Martell. Dude was never going to do anything anyway. Just play the kid. You have nothing to lose. You can't get worse at quarterback. I mean, I'm gonna go look at their stats right now. I don't even know. I haven't even like prepped for what these stats are, but they've played 6 games. They have 690 pass yards. They averaged 120 pass yards a game. 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, or 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. What are we doing? Can I get any help? Can somebody explain something to me? What are we doing in Ann Arbor? Grab your pants, hike them up, make a decision, put Jaden Davis in, get the damn ball to Colson Loveland and Samaj Morgan, let them make plays. Give your running backs a chance. You've ran the ball 227 times, damn near 40 times a game. Give your running backs a chance. Everybody knows you're going to stack 9 guys in the box, and they're still going to go, nah, I think we should run off tackle. That's my only concern with Sharon Moore. I like Sharon Moore as a dude and as a coach even, but I think he might be too committed to smash mouth football. And maybe that changes if he has a quarterback. But we saw in the games when Harbaugh was out with McCarthy, and again, they didn't need to throw all that much, but he's dead set on this is Michigan football and this is what we're gonna do. And win or lose, I'm sticking to it. So I do have some concerns long term for Sharon Moore's adaptability and also Wink Martindale. Get this guy the hell out of here. Who thought it was a good idea to bring in Wink Martindale? You come off one of the best defenses in history with Jesse Minter. You bring back Will Johnson. You bring back your guys in the middle. You bring back Makari Page. And then you bring in Wink Martindale, who was just a turd in New York with the Giants, I believe. I think that's the last place he was. I mean, this guy sucks. Right? Does anybody think he doesn't suck? I don't know. Yeah, he was with the Giants last year. He was with the Giants for 2 years. Big shocker. The defenses weren't good. The teams weren't good. He was in Baltimore, so I guess he's got the Harbaugh connection. Harbaugh trusts him. I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't like Wink Martindale. I'm concerned about Sharon Moore's adaptability. I'm concerned about the Michigan program that Jim Harbaugh built, because Tom Brady said it best, and I think it was in the last couple months, about we used to have programs in college football. Now we just have teams, players running around, transfer, whatever. Jim Harbaugh made Michigan a program. And yeah, he had his struggles throughout the beginning and middle. But he made a program where guys came to get developed. And sometimes you got the 4 stars and 5 stars, but most of the time he took those 3-star guys and developed them into fantastic players, fantastic teammates, just a great unit. And you saw him put it together for 3 years in a row. And you saw those guys come back at the end. And that's what I'm concerned about on the Michigan end, is because I think they're a university that thrives in building the program. And they're going to have to find that again. I don't think I know we're halfway through year one post Harbaugh. And again, this roster was ravaged. But I just think there are some cracks in the armor right now that I am concerned about. Not just right now, but in the long run for Michigan. Their pass offense is ranked like 200 out of 134. It's just, it's not a good place to be in right now. We love Michigan. We love Ann Arbor. One of the greatest teams of all time last year, but hey, life comes at you quick. And most of us have experienced that for a lot of our fan careers. So, it's a part of life. I think that wraps it up for our talk of upsets. There's still a lot of fantastic games that I won't spend as long on, but I will spend some time on. Nebraska, one loss, is able to beat an undefeated Rutgers team. For the first time, we really saw Dylan Raiola struggle, 134 yards and an interception, no touchdowns, but they were able to win 14-7 in a great defensive battle against a Rutgers team that, again, is undefeated and is obviously just a really solid football team. In the Big Ten, again, it goes back to these super conferences of like, Rutgers is the best team they've fielded in a long time, and they're probably still like the 9th or 10th best team in the Big Ten. And so, that I think that's a tough one, but they look really good. Nebraska, again, I'm really high in Nebraska. I think maybe not this year, but their potential moving forward is, and not second to none. I'm not going to get that crazy, but it's right up there. They could do a lot of damage in this year and the next 2 years with Dylan Raiola, just with how talented he is. Again, Matt Rule, he builds programs. He did it at Baylor. Obviously struggled with the Carolina Panthers in the NFL, but he builds programs, man. So I'm really happy for these middle tier teams in the Big Ten. You look at Nebraska being back, kind of on the path they should be. You look at Rutgers with one loss. You look at Indiana 6-0. Kurt Signetti doing a fantastic job there. It's a fun conference right now. It's smash mouth football as always. I think it's a pretty clear delineation between your top, your middle, and your bottom there, but nonetheless, really fun to watch and a lot of really good quarterback play. And that's what I'm a quarterback guy. I love great quarterback play. I love watching quarterbacks in general. And so, get to watch Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, hoping he comes into his own a little more. Really enjoyed watching Dylan Raiola so far. Will Howard, man, doesn't really do it for me. Drew Aller, I like watching him, and I'm waiting for him to show up and be Drew Aller that I want him to be, but still hasn't happened yet. They won 27-11 against a really bad UCLA team. Doesn't really get me out of bed. Yeah, I don't know. Big Ten's weird. Big Ten's good. They got some teams. They got some dogs. And they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think it's an interesting conference. Again, going back to, I'd be curious if I took all the conferences and I put the top 5 all against each other and say, okay, who's going to come out on top? I think that list would look very different than if we did front to back 1 through 16. They all play each other, and that's where I think the Big Ten could make some hay, frankly. And so I think it's a really deep conference. I think all of these Power 4 conferences are really deep now. Obviously, we consolidated, a Power 5 into a Power 4. Logic says we're going to have deeper conferences, and that's what we're seeing. And yeah, I know that was a very scientific explanation of you put more good teams into a conference, and then you have more good teams in the conference. Yeah, pay me. I deserve to be paid for that spicy take there. Iowa State, Baylor. Iowa State's fantastic too. I'm pretty high on them. I wanted to put them up almost in my top 10 in my quick reaction rankings this weekend that I did on Saturday night. Didn't quite have the goal to do it, but Matt Campbell he never ceases to amaze me. And I think I kind of thought very highly of him and the Kansas coach, especially when he was getting a lot of talk going to Michigan State. And I thought even more of both of them when they stayed put and didn't jump ship. And I was like, yeah, these are the guys that we need in college football. We have the transfer portal, and that's for players, but it's not that different for coaches either. They're getting poached all the time. And so I was really high on them when they stayed around. Unfortunately, Kansas has turned out to suck. They're 1-5 right now. And, again, I thought Lance Leopold was going to continue to be on that rise. He had his quarterback coming back, a lot of good things going for them. They upset Oklahoma last year. They did really well, and then they came out and they have just puked it up. Lost to Illinois, lost to UNLV, lost to West Virginia, lost to TCU, lost to Arizona State. It's no bueno in whatever city in Kansas we're playing in. I want to say Manhattan, but that's Kansas State. So yeah, sucks for them. But Rocco Becht in the Iowa State Cyclones are on a tear right now. He had 277 yards and 2 touchdowns against Baylor. Baylor's still kind of finding themselves. They're 2-4. Probably should have beat Colorado, but didn't, and just ran into a buzzsaw at Iowa State. So I do want to give Iowa State a shout out for just how well they're playing. And, Rocco Becht saw some flashes last year when he came in, was able to watch 1 or 2 of their games. And, he has not disappointed so far. He hasn't, been over the moon, but I don't think he's disappointed so far. So, he's on pace to have similar stats as he did last year in the 23 touchdown range, 2,500 to 3,000 yards. Gonna continue to be a problem. He's only a sophomore, so he's going to be around for another couple of years. And, I think with him and Matt Campbell there, they're going to be in the mix for the Big 12, which is one of those conferences that, they don't have the big dogs at the top, but they are through and through truly a conference where anybody could win on any given Saturday. And if anybody can lose on any given Saturday, or sorry, if anybody can win on any given Saturday, that also means anyone can lose on any given Saturday, especially the UCF Knights, who there are some people looking that direction for a little bit. And then they lost 48-21 to Colorado. And it's like, okay, maybe this is more about Colorado actually kind of turning the corner, being disciplined, being the team that they could and should be. And then they go and they lay an egg 24-13 against Florida. So we can kick the Knights to the side. They suck. I'm surprised. Speaking of that game, I'm surprised Florida still hasn't started DJ Lagway. I know they started him one game and he did fairly well, really well, I think, actually. And then they went back to Graham Mertz. Maybe it's a development thing. I think it's kind of weird. DJ Lagway is, he's a big time player. And again, he's already shown success. He was 4 for 4 for 50 yards in this game as well. And it sucks that you have to think about it like this, but you have to think of the transfer portal. And that's what I was thinking about 3-4 years ago when Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy was a freshman. I was like, this McCarthy kid's a 5-star and he's going to leave. But you saw Harbaugh kind of sprinkled him into the offense here and there, keep him engaged, keep him going. We're seeing the same thing with DJ Lagway here. I have seen him on some transfer rumor boards, but I think if nothing else, Billy Napier, who I cannot believe is still employed, he's sprinkling them in there. He's keeping them engaged, keeping them interested, knowing that we are going to turn the keys over to him at the off season, at the end of the season. But that'll be an interesting dynamic to follow as the season goes on. Florida's 3-2 right now. If things take a turn back for the worse, like we thought they might at the beginning of the season, especially with how hard their schedule is coming up, maybe we do see Lagway. But if they're putzing along on pace to go, 8-4, maybe we stay with Graham Mertz and, kind of ride that one out. But UCF, man, I think they got a good team, but one of the biggest downfalls I've seen in a little while, KJ Jefferson. Did anybody know that KJ Jefferson was the quarterback of the UCF Knights? I did, unfortunately. And he sucks. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's in his 6th year and he's terrible. 7 touchdowns, 4 picks on 59% completion percentage. Disgusting. I think he was all hype anyway. I mean, even looking at his best season, he had 2,700 yards. He did have 21 touchdowns and only 4 picks. So, yes, he wasn't bad, but this dude is just booty cheeks. I mean, because he's not even running the ball either. He's got 30 carries for 58 yards and 2 touchdowns this season, with 21 of them coming on 1 carry. No, this guy sucks. Next question. Who do they have to start over him? He's freaking 35 years old. Get him out of here. Get in a guy that can develop. UCF's a fun school. It's a fun college football program. They have cool uniforms. Don't waste it on this 35-year-old washed up Arkansas turd bag. Enough. You want to be a serious program? Don't take a completely worn out KJ Jefferson in the transfer portal. You're better than that. Anyway, a game that I was really intrigued, and I watched it in the locker room at my hockey game on Saturday. Syracuse at UNLV, and Syracuse did end up pulling that out like we were hoping for / anticipated. Kyle McCord continues to get it done, 355 yards and 3 touchdowns. Won it in overtime. Some crazy stuff going on. I know they had a third down in overtime or maybe it was fourth down, where the game was pretty much over, and then they got bailed out by a roughing the passer. Just a lot of craziness, but I really do like Syracuse. I don't think it's tough for me to say if they could claw their way up to even be in the conversation for the college football playoff with two losses, just giving that you have Miami and you have Clemson over top of you. Now, granted, they will get a chance last game of the season to play Miami. So if you roll into that game 10-1 and you beat Miami at home, maybe, we're definitely having a conversation there. That's if Miami can hold serve as well. And that's always my concern with Miami is they start out hot and then they turn into a team that nobody's ever heard of before. They they suck it up. So that Stanford loss for Syracuse really, really hurts at the end because Stanford is not good by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, they'll have that chance at the end. Cal's looked pretty good too. Pittsburgh's ranked, so they'll have some chances to really prove themselves. But I think they're on the outside looking in. I think it's a really fun team to watch, and good for Kyle McCord, man. Keep this train rolling. If nothing else, it's super fun to watch. Like I said, and they can make things interesting. They can cause a little chaos at the end. One thing I thought was interesting, and I don't want to talk about the game, but was here listening to a lot of people talk about Ohio State right now and kind of, their mindset going into the Oregon game. And it was like, they didn't get Will Howard to be a better passer than Kyle McCord. And I was thinking about it and I was like, that's stupid. And then, I dug a little more into it and I was like, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe Will, like, what is Will Howard versus Kyle McCord? Is it a stylistic upgrade? He's obviously a bit more mobile, a bit more gritty, a bit more experienced. He's been on like Kansas State program forever. Is it strictly the running ability? Is it he's just a dude and the guys in the locker room love him? I'm not really sure, but I think this game this week, obviously, besides being a top 3 matchup for Ohio State, is going to be really interesting to see because right now, right, them and Texas are the undefeated teams that are, what we're saying. Okay, these are the elites. Who else is going to be in that group with them? And I'm really curious, and really on both sides, because I think both Oregon and Ohio State are going to get pressure on the quarterbacks, and so I'm going to be looking at what does Will Howard look like under pressure because historically he's not good. He's a completely different quarterback when he's under pressure. You see his rating drop, looking at it, nearly 20, 25 points when there's pressure on him. So that is my concern there. I think he's a better runner. I think he's more experienced. I think maybe he fits the Ohio State mold, the Ohio State way a little more than Kyle McCord. But watching Kyle McCord and watching Will Howard, I'm just sitting here. Did we need to do that? And did we do that just to do that? We said, hey, we're gonna go get Caleb Downs, we're gonna go get Quinshon Judkins, we're just gonna get everybody. We might as well get a quarterback while we're there. I don't know. It's weird, and apologies. We'll get back to this week's stuff in a bit, but I wanted to ramble about that for a second because it's just a really interesting situation there. Last two, we got Miami and California, college game day out in California. Awesome game. Miami very narrowly escapes again, 39-38. Cam Ward at 437 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Props to them. They keep doing it. I don't know what they keep doing and why or how, but Miami keeps doing it. They're 6-0. They're the number 6 team in the country at this point. And they got a damn cupcake schedule. You got Louisville, who's teetering on whether they're ranked or not. Florida State, who is literally the liquid at the bottom of my dumpster. You got Duke, who's had a hot start, but I don't think they're that good. Georgia Tech could be a legitimate upset alert there. Wake Forest, and then you finish with Syracuse. And so they've got the schedule to be able to do it, but we got to figure something out here. We won 38-34 against Virginia Tech last week because of a really weird fluke play that a Miami player out of bounds was touching the football. And then you got 39-38 barely holding on against Cal. So great teams win close games, win ugly games. So, I'm not going to sit here and bash them for that. They put the beat down on Florida at the Swamp 41-17. They won their non-conference games as convincingly as they should. So I'm not going to say that I'm suspicious yet, but I am kind of suspicious. This reminds me of Clemson about 10 years ago. And I think you all remember this is like the Taj Boyd era. We always said like Clemson's going to Clemson because they're going to be a top 10 team and they're just going to do something idiotic to lose like one or two games and be out of contention. And so inherently, we grew to trust Clemson because they went through and they went to those national championships and they finished the deal with Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, etc. But Miami hasn't shown that yet, and so Miami's kind of getting the old Clemson shaft just because, like, is Miami gonna Miami? I don't know. Cam Ward's gonna be must see TV. I think it's a bit outlandish the people that are saying he might be the first quarterback off the board. Talent wise, he's up there, but I don't like him. If you're going to ask me if I'm an NFL GM, I'm taking Milroe over him, probably taking Shadur over him, probably taking Carson Beck over him. And then, like, I think, and I'm a little biased here, so it's hard for me to tell. I think I probably take Ewers over him, but I think he's kind of in that first tier for me right now is like Milroe, sometimes Sanders, and Carson Beck. And then that second group is like Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, and Quinn Ewers. And I think Ewers and Sanders are the ones that kind of go back in between. Sometimes Quinn is up in that top 3, top 2. Sometimes Sanders is dropping back into that second group. So it's a weird one for me. I think Cam Ward's, he's in my top 3 for the Heisman. I don't think he wins it, but he's on pace for over 4,500 yards and 40 passing touchdowns, along with potentially 300 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. It's hard not to give a guy the Heisman when he plays like that, except for there's at least one, if not 2 other guys that are putting up numbers that are just mind-boggling at this point. So I don't know, and we'll move on to those mind-boggling numbers right now. Last game, just because Ashton Genty's in it. Boise State beats Utah State. Nothing surprising there, but my guy Ashton Genty went off again. He had 186 rush yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, this guy, physics don't apply to him. Nothing really applies to him. And again, for me, it's going to be, can he stay healthy throughout the year? But if he can stay healthy and strong, and it looks like their quarterback play is coming along a little bit, this guy's ridiculous. Best season since Barry Sanders in 1987, I believe was his Heisman season. I just want to give you the numbers through 5 games. So Barry Sanders, 1988 Heisman season through 5 games, 130 attempts, 1,002 yards, and 17 touchdowns. Ridiculous. Ashton Genty, 95 attempts, so 35 fewer, 1,031 yards, so a little bit more, and 16 touchdowns, 1 less. He's averaging over 10 yards a carry. And the crazy thing is, he has ran the ball against an 8-man plus box 30 times this season. He averages 8.9 yards per carry against an 8-man plus box. Like I said, physics and logic and whatever else you want to say, they just do not apply to this guy right now. And it is fantastic. I love every second of it because I love great running back play. You think of like the great running back seasons. You watched Reggie Bush back in the day, and then you watched, Mark Ingram, and then you watched Derrick Henry go off. And he is blowing those seasons completely out of the water. In 2015, Derrick Henry had 570 yards and 9 touchdowns through 5 games. Mark Ingram had 487 yards and 6 touchdowns through 5 games. And they both won the Heisman. And this guy's got over 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns on this about the same amount of carries. It's not like he's carrying the ball more. So shout out to Ashton Genty. They won 62-30. Maddox Madsen actually put up some stats, 3 touchdowns, no picks. We'll see if he can continue that moving forward. Because again, I think that is the thing. If they can't strike balance on offense, that, it could hold them back. So yeah, I think he's got to be my Heisman front runner right now. Second is Travis Hunter, who is a top 10 receiver in the country statistically. He's approaching that 50 catch mark, 500 yards, and I think he has 6 touchdowns. And then he does everything on the defensive side of the ball. And I know I listed through some stats on the podcast with Derek last week. If you put his stats in front of me separately, you could not tell if he was a receiver or a cornerback. And I think that's the crazy thing, the fascinating thing. And that's why, like, it's taking a historic season, the best season in 40, 50 years from Ashton Genty, to have me considering that Travis Hunter might not win the Heisman this year. It's that talented. And so it's always weird because obviously this is generally a quarterback award, just like, the MVP in the NFL. But I don't know if you can give it to a quarterback this year if these two keep up the pace. Logic would tell you that at some point both of them are going to slow down. Travis Hunter because he plays 120 snaps a game, which is ungodly, and then Ashton Genty because of the wear and tear. But then again, you look at it, he's not getting that many carries. 186 yards and 3 touchdowns, ridiculous. In a normal human being's mind, yeah, he probably carried the ball 25 to 30 times. He only carried it 13. So maybe that wear and tear is not there at the end of the year for him. And so I think he has a better chance of keeping it up than Hunter because, again, he's having the stats, but he's not getting as much wear and tear on his body as I thought. Whereas Travis Hunter is just seeing that, the crazy amount of snaps. And if anybody can do it, it's him. But yeah, it's a fun race for the Heisman this year, man. And then outside of those two, then you got Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward, who again, Cam Ward is on pace to put up 5,000 total yards and damn near 50 touchdowns. I mean, what a time. This is fun. And good teams are good again. Miami's buzzing with Cam Ward. Texas is buzzing, Alabama's buzzing, Boise State's bringing back that magic from the early 2000s. Colorado's good again, actually looking like it. Nebraska's good again. College football is great when these programs are good. I'd like a little more out of USC and Lincoln Riley, but another program that has taken some steps forwards in the last 3 to 4 years. And it's just good for the sport. I mean, we could just keep going on the list. Clemson, the last couple of years have been rough. They get blown up by Georgia. And now I'm looking at this team like this is probably a top 8, top 9 team. Another team like Iowa State where I didn't quite have the stones to really throw them up the list. But a team that's just really fantastic. I hope Penn State and Drew Aller can round the corner and be great. But I mean, what a time to be alive for college football. The Blue Bloods are back. Great running back play is here. Two-way players are here. Charles Woodson, Desmond Howard. I'm sure just having a great time watching Travis Hunter and seeing if, a player like them can win the Heisman again. Just all around fantastic. Unfortunately, with those fantastic teams, you're going to have a few disappointments. Kansas, we already kind of spoke about. Florida State, we already spoke about. Arizona, they haven't been bad, but they've been disappointing for what I thought they were going to be this year. Kansas and Florida State are just god awful. I think we should just cancel their seasons and they should just play for the toilet bowl. loser gets relegated to the Pac-12. So somebody start a petition to the White House or something that Kansas and Florida State need to play, and the loser gets shamed into having to play in the Pac-12 forever for 20 years. I think it's only fair. They've disappointed themselves. They've disappointed their fans. They've disappointed me. And how can you disappoint this face? I don't. This great face for radio. How can you disappoint it? I don't know. Anyway, right now, those teams suck. Going for the toilet bowl. Ashton Genty, give me the Heisman. Travis Hunter, close second right now, just because I don't think he's going to be able to sustain it as much. And holy hell, I told you, it's a crazy weekend. I could go on for hours and hours on what happened last weekend. But then you look at the schedule and you're like, again, these next 2 weeks could be two of the greatest weeks that we've ever seen in college football. And I'm just going to take you through the rundown if you didn't know it already. We got number 2 Ohio State at number 3 Oregon, and they're both in the Big Ten. And they could play again because we don't have an East and West anymore. We've got number 9 Ole Miss playing a night game at number 13 LSU. We got up-and-coming Kansas State playing against Colorado. It could be Colorado's coming out party. We've got the Red River Shootout, baby, in Dallas, Texas. Number 1 Texas. Number 18 Oklahoma. I mean, does it get much better than that? Does it? I don't know. It's just a great time for college football. I can't say that enough. But yeah, if your friends or anybody's getting married or do anything on October 12th, I feel bad for them. I feel bad for you. Just don't attend. Who needs friends when you have college football and the Coffee and Cups podcast and sports? Dig in, bear down, get out the damn grill, toss the football, get the cornhole out, get with your family, and just enjoy a fantastic time of year. Before we get into the specifics of this week's game, I just want to take the time to remind you that this podcast, this company is a proud partner of another great small business, Synergy Coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, black coffee is back. I know it's 2024 and we're all obsessed with our lattes, oat milks, and pumpkin spice, but rest assured there is something out there that is a lot easier on your taste buds, stomach, and most importantly, your wallet. This show is a proud partner with Synergy Coffee Chicago, an up-and-coming company right here in my backyard. Synergy is proud to produce small batch coffees from all around the world, infusing them with unique flavors and roasting them fresh every week. I personally am hooked on the Dark Knight, which is sourced from Mexico. It boasts a rich flavor with notes of cinnamon, abuelita, and vanilla, and it always hits the spot. I brew it up in my Chemex every weekend when I'm home, and I sip on it all day long. Thank you, Chris, for that message again. Cups and Coffee 10, all caps, and then the numbers 10 at the end to make sure you get 10% off your next order with Justin over at Synergy Coffee. Great friend of the show, a great friend of mine. We appreciate you, Justin. So thank you. I know Fantasy Football League, we'll do a little talking about that later in some different shows, but sponsoring our show, giving out a bunch of free coffee for that, working on the merch with us. Just been fantastic working with Justin. On to the games at hand. I know we kind of already dove into the quarterback side of the Ohio State-Oregon game. Two guys that are a combined 87 years old, almost as old as Alan Bowman and my good friend Cam Rising over at Utah if they would have actually played, but they didn't. Good quarterback matchup here, experienced quarterback matchup. Again, I think both teams will get pressure. I like Dylan Gabriel just a little bit more than Will Howard. I think he's a little bit more explosive. I think he's a little bit more accurate. He gets the football out quick. And I think you're starting to see that offense mesh. Again, I've talked about Bo Nix had 2 years in that offense, and I don't think that can be understated. You know, these are smart guys and everything, but it takes time for the players to mesh and the playbook to mesh and really master it. And I think we've seen that in spurts from from Dylan Gabriel, and so I'm excited to see if that continues to come out. It's in Eugene, Oregon. Ohio State is actually favored by 3 with an over under of 54.5. So I don't know if there's anything too surprising in that line, right? Ohio State's ranked higher. I like Oregon in this game. I'll take them against the spread. I've said it before, and I think this way kind of with both Texas and with Oregon. Oregon, Ohio State. I think Oregon wins on the home field. I think they rematch in the Big Ten championship, and I think Ohio State wins there at a neutral site. I like Texas to beat Georgia, and then I think it's a toss up later in the season in Atlanta. Obviously, pretty much a home game for Georgia, and then we see who gets the 1 seed, who gets the 5 seed there. And again, I've alluded to this. I almost like the 5 seed more than the 1 seed, and I know that's like a peasant's way of talking of like, oh, you're just making excuses now for when you lose a game, but that's not the case. This is a gauntlet of a conference, especially. We said Texas' schedule was easy, but now you got Vanderbilt and Arkansas who just show they can beat great teams. You got Georgia, you got Oklahoma, so pish posh. But yeah, I like the home field team here. I like Oregon. I really like Dylan Gabriel. It's looking like it's going to be warm and sunny in Eugene. It's going to be loud. Autzen a smaller stadium, but they get after it at Autzen. That's definitely a bucket list stadium I got on my list. Matchup predictor has 64.2% chance of Ohio State winning, 35.8% chance of Oregon winning. Again, I think this is some easy money. Maybe not easy money, but I do like Oregon here. I think Oregon's been tested a little more, which I obviously always like coming into these games. You know, Ohio State beat up on Iowa, who I hate Iowa. Michigan State sucks. Marshall sucks. Western Michigan sucks. Akron sucks. So we'll see the real Ohio State come out. And I don't get me wrong, this is a top 3 team in the country. This is a team that's absolutely going to be there competing for a national championship at the end. But I know a little bit more, and I like a little bit more about Dylan Gabriel. I know a little more, and I like a little more about their schedule. They beat Boise State, which was a really tough game. Oregon State, they've already had their big rivalry game for the year, and they won 49-14. They also beat that same Michigan State squad by a similar margin as Ohio State. So I trust. I trust Ohio. I mean, Oregon just a tad bit more, and I think it's going to be exciting because I don't think either of these teams have really reached their potential yet this year. Which obviously for those teams it's good, right? You don't want to peak in September and October. You want to peak in November, December, January. So it'll be interesting to see if one of these two teams starts to peak and starts to really show why they were that dominant, top 4 easy money prediction to start the year. And I just think I've seen a tad bit more of it out of Oregon than I have Ohio State. And that's really my only thing here. Again, at the quarterback position, you got 2 quarterbacks that have thrown for well over 1,000 yards. Howard has 12 touchdowns, 3 picks. Gabriel has 11 touchdowns, 3 picks. Leading rusher, Judkins has about 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. Oregon's leading rusher, James, has just over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith, 453 yards and 6 touchdowns. Tez Johnson, 395 yards and 5 touchdowns. There's a lot of great players here, man. You can go down the list on both offense and defense. Obviously, these are 2 teams that are known more for their offense, but you go up and down these rosters, there's a reason they're number 2 and 3. There's a reason Ohio State's a perennial playoff contender. There's a reason that Oregon's generally there as well. I know they had the 2 losses to Washington last year, but these are just 2 fantastic and fun programs, quite frankly. So I'll take Oregon here with the very slight upset over Ohio State. Again, I like home field advantage here. Ole Miss at LSU. Ole Miss is ranked slightly higher at 9 than LSU at 13. And I'm just really intrigued here to I've seen a lot of Garrett Nussmeier and I really like him, but I mean, this is your chance. You're going head to head against another top quarterback in Jackson Dart. You got the home crowd on your side. Ole Miss is favored by 3.5 points with an over under at 61.5. My God. Can we play any defense? I hope not, because I want to watch this. I'll be watching it after the Texas game. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. Death Valley is a tough place to play, which is why I'm going to lean LSU on this one. But Jackson Dart's been ridiculous. 2,100 yards, 13 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's completing at a high percentage. He's right around the 70% mark. Garrett Nussmeier, over 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks. Big thing for me, and I've talked about the last couple weeks, Cade Durham and the LSU run game have to continue to establish themselves. He's been fantastic since the South Carolina game, not putting up gaudy numbers, but he's just quietly been just a really good running back for them. We know they have two great offensive linemen. Unfortunately, Harold Perkins is out on defense, but we know they have Garrett Nussmeier. We know what both of these teams have, and we know what both of their weaknesses are. And so now, we start to put pen to paper and belt to ass potentially. It's not going to happen in this game. I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to take LSU. I'm going to take upset. Go 2 for 2 on the upset so far. Again, it comes down a little bit to trust. So both teams have one loss. LSU's loss was the first game of the season to USC right at the end. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, who's a better team than we maybe give them credit for. So neither of their losses are bad. I think we do know a little bit more about Ole Miss than we do about LSU, maybe per se. But I mean, they both, they played a weak non-conference schedule besides the USC game. The thing is, LSU's only played one conference game so far. So that's the concerning thing for me about them is, they lost to USC, they beat Nicholls State, okay. They beat South Carolina in a sketchy game, okay. They beat UCLA, meh, and then South Alabama. So actually, give me Ole Miss. I'm not taking the upset on this one. Nah, give me Ole Miss. Maybe. I don't know. You have to check in with me about 3 minutes before the game. I'm going to toss this one back and forth. I'll start by just being fun and picking the upset. So we'll say LSU is going to win it at home, but check in with me 3 minutes before the game. I might change my mind here. Big implications here as both teams are one-loss teams. LSU is undefeated, 1-0 in the conference. Ole Miss is 1-1 again with the loss to Kentucky. Both teams beat South Carolina. I don't know. Flip a coin on that one. Just flip the coin. We'll see. Moving on down the list. My game that I'm excited about for multiple reasons is Kansas State and Colorado. And Chris, why is that, you might ask? Do you just want to berate Deion Sanders? And the answer might be partially yes. But I do want to start this by kind of backtracking a bit on what I've said in the past. I'm not going to say that I like Deion in the program. I'm not going to say anything like that. But I do want to, I'm not going to take back some of the statements I said. But I do know that they maybe are treated a little differently than others. But part of me is also you bring that on yourself. It's kind of up in the air. And so I'm trying to leave Deion out of it. I really like Travis Hunter overall. I really think Shedeur Sanders is a good quarterback. He's kind of annoying. I like some of this team. I don't know. I'm torn. Again, I want to like Colorado, but Deion makes it really hard sometimes. And sometimes even Shedeur makes it really hard sometimes. So we'll see. Colorado's 2-0 in conference right now. They've been on a heater ever since their loss to Nebraska. Shedeur Sanders, obviously one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Right now, we have the line at Kansas State -3.5, with the over/under being 55.5. Kansas State with a 52.4% chance to win. Colorado with a 47.6% chance to win. I'm rolling with Kansas State. I believe I blooped them out of my playoff bracket because we literally had to do the brackets the week after they lost just an atrocious game to BYU. Now BYU is a top 15 team, but they did lose 38-9. So I still like them as a team. I still think they can beat Colorado. I like Avery Johnson. I'm going to keep saying that. I think they're just a really solid team. They're well coached. They always tend to get better as the year goes on. So give me Kansas State in this one. I'm rewatching the Travis Hunter show. That's what I'm here for, right? I think this is kind of a toss-up game at this point. Again, I'm trying to set aside my biases that I know I have currently towards Dion for some of the antics. And again, some of it's well warranted, but I think I've definitely taken issue to some things I don't need to take issue with. And so putting that aside, I still like Kansas State, right? The roster through and through is just not there for Colorado for me at the moment. They have one or two offensive linemen that are really coming on and starting to do great things. Sanders is always going to do great things. I'm torn, right? You got 2-4-1 teams, two teams that probably deserve to be ranked. And I'll stick with Kansas State. I'm gonna stick by my guns on that one. Travis Hunter's gonna have another great game, and we'll kind of see where things go. The big thing for me is the depth for Colorado. I just think again Kansas State has built more of that program, and we'll see if Colorado's upfront talent can work with that. Jimmy Horn Jr., second leading receiver. He's over 200 yards behind Travis Hunter and only has one touchdown. LeJontay Wester has 5 touchdowns. Amarion Miller, who came out of nowhere, I believe it was in the USC game last year, was a very high recruit. I'm very shocked that he hasn't done more this year, and he'll be one I'm watching for in the transfer portal, a very talented wide receiver. But at the end of the day, I think Kansas State holds the line, and I think they'll come out with a win there. Which brings us to the coup de grace, the kill shot, the pièce de résistance, if you will. Red River, Texas State Fair, Cotton Bowl Stadium, Saturday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Watch for me on the TV. I decided at a stoplight on Tuesday on my way to work that I'm going to this damn game because I can't go out with what happened last year. And I love this team. I love everything about it. And I am damn excited about this game. I don't even have words for it. It's gonna be exciting. If you've never been to this game, which probably most people listening or everybody listening has not, unless your name is Jose. If you haven't been to rivalries in general, I think the Michigan State, or if you've ever been to an Alabama Auburn or games like that, it's close. But just the fact of having it at the state fair, you have 200,000 people at the state fair plus the 100,000+ in the stadium. It's split directly 50-50 at the 50-yard line. And so, you start your drive in friendly confines. It's nice and quiet. Everything's great. And you get past, you get down to the red zone and it's a damn war zone, or vice versa, right? You get a punt down inside your own 5 and it is like hell itself has been unleashed on you. And then you get past the 50 and it's like, oh, hey, we're playing a home game. And so it's crazy. Nobody's going to sit down the whole damn time. And then with that 50-50 split again, it's always a big play for somebody. So that stadium is never quiet. I think that's a really cool thing too, is, obviously, you're at a big time team stadium. It's going to be super loud when they're doing well. It's going to be super quiet when they're doing bad, but there is never a moment of silence in this stadium. And it is just, it consumes you, is the only way I can describe it. And I'll obviously went to it last year. I'm going to try to soak it in even more this year and try to give you guys an accurate representation, but it is just, it's everything it's cracked up to be and more. And so could not be more excited to go to this game and really excited to break it down as well from both sides. So we'll start out with the injury report. Both teams pretty decimated in some pretty concentrated areas. So Texas is going to be down 4 running backs this weekend. We knew CJ Baxter and Christian Clark, we're going to miss the whole season. And then on the OU side, they're going to be down 5 of their top 6 receivers, including Deion Burks and why can't I think of Andrell Anthony, Jaleel Farouk, Nick Anderson. And so this is a tough one on both sides. Obviously, the good news for Texas, right, is generally only have one running back on the field at a time, and so is what it is. But receiver, if you're down your 4 top receivers, right, obviously potentially you could have all 4 of them on the field at one time, and now you have none of them. And so that's going to be the tough thing, especially because we started the year and, I gassed Oklahoma up. I think they probably had the best, if not minimum top 3 receiving cores in the country. Like this team was stupid good at receiver, and they've just been killed by injuries so far. And so, that's I know been a tough one for them. Other than that, some minor pieces. Texas's freshman punter is questionable. Quinn Ewers and Derek Williams are both probable for Texas, which are obviously, big games to get back. Oklahoma's offensive line is getting back. Taylor Tatum will be playing and is fully healthy. So I think definitely some injuries at key positions, obviously, but it's a rivalry game, man. We can throw all that out the window right now. Texas is favored by 14 and a half points, which is absolute rat poison, and I hate it, but it is what it is. The odds makers got to make the odds, and they love Texas right now, and I don't disagree with them, but I just don't like it. Over under is only set at 48.5, which is a bit surprising. I mean, 2 good defenses, and Oklahoma's offense has struggled a little bit, so I guess not overly surprising, but a little bit lower and under. Big thing here is it's going to be a hot game, and so I was packing up my bag, putting in jeans and stuff, and then I realized it's going to be 95 degrees and sunny all weekend. So I had to switch up my wardrobe a little bit, so that'll be something to see, especially again with Texas running back room being pretty beat up, and Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner both having lower body injuries, and even Jarrett Gibson, all of their healthy running backs at some point have missed some snaps. Jaden Blue even missed a couple games, so that is very concerning. I think they're healthy now; they're not even on like the probable for the injury report, so that'll be something. And then obviously Oklahoma's going to be thin at receiver, but 2 really good defenses going at it. Right now, ESPN's got, again, the spread at 14 and a half, 85.1% chance Texas wins, 14.9% chance Oklahoma wins. Again, toss that out the window. There was a couple years ago, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, Texas is 1-4 coming into the game. Oklahoma's top 10 in the country. Texas wins it. We saw Texas get up like 28-7 3 years ago with Casey Thompson as the quarterback. Caleb Williams comes in for Spencer Rattler, leads them all the way back to a crazy victory. Anything can happen in this game. Do I really love this team going in? Yeah. I loved it last year as well. I was probably less confident last year going in for sure, but anything can happen. Anything will happen. So, we'll see where it takes us. The big storyline, I think, besides the defense, is going to start at quarterback, right? Quinn Ewers coming back from a couple weeks off from his oblique injury. Last time he's had an injury each season. 2 years ago, he came back against Oklahoma off an injury, threw for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick in a 49-0 win. And then he had Jackson Arnold, the 5-star quarterback who is going to lead Oklahoma to the promised land. He gets benched a couple games in, and you have Michael Hawkins come in for them. He's looked good so far as a freshman coming in, more of a dual threat guy, even though Jackson Arnold is, very, very good on his feet, quite frankly. So the dynamic has changed there. And so I think on the Texas end, rush lanes are going to be imperative against Hawkins. We saw Gabriel rush for over 100 yards against them last year. And so that is something that just obviously straight up cannot happen again. So rush lanes are going to be important. I really love this defensive line. Trey Moore is more than due for a sack. He's had none this year after 14 and a half last year at UTSA. Colin Simmons has been a man-child off the edge. Baron Sorrell, Alfred Collins. This is a team that can get it done on the defensive line and is going to need to get it done, not just from winning their one-on-one battles with an Oklahoma offensive line that is just now getting healthy, but from a rush lane integrity and a play integrity standpoint. And so that's going to be the key for me on defense for Texas is that discipline. I think the defensive backfield's been playing fantastic, and Hawkins isn't necessarily an over the top passing threat, although he is more than capable. He's thrown for 310 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks in the couple games that he's played in. He's also rushed for 101 yards and a touchdown. So definitely a dual threat guy. You saw him show off the wheels against Auburn last week. So yeah, I don't 100% know what to expect. Oklahoma's offense has been fairly abysmal so far this year. But again, you never know what's going to happen coming into these games. Is it going to be the team that came out week one and put up 51 points on Temple, albeit it was Temple, or is it going to be the team that barely beat Houston 16-12? Is it going to be the team that had to have a pick six with 4 minutes left to beat Auburn last week? I don't know, but this is what I was concerned about with Oklahoma from the start is the quarterback play. Jackson Arnold, again, looked efficient, but he wasn't doing anything to help the team win the games. And so I think Hawkins gives you a little less of that efficiency, maybe a little more of that just playmaking ability that can go take over a game. And so that's what Texas needs to be worried about. On the flip side, Oklahoma is strong on defense as well. We'll see one of these defenses break at some point. Danny Stutzman comes back, who's obviously been a monster for them for the past 3 years at that middle linebacker position. You get Dominic Williams, who was a highly sought after defensive tackle recruit in the transfer portal this year. I know Texas was heavy in on him. It came down to Texas and Oklahoma got him. You have Billy Bowman at the safety position, Peyton Bowen, who's back there, and he also plays special teams. You have a lot of experience. Oklahoma has 0 guys starting on offense that played in Red River last year. They have 9 guys on defense, and that can't be overstated coming into these rivalry games. They have the experience. They have the leadership. Brent Venables is obviously a defensive coach, and so that's going to be their game plan going in is let's shorten up the game, own the time of possession, and then we clamp down on defense because that's just what the recipe has to be. And not because Oklahoma's a bad team right there. They're ranked 18th for a reason. They're probably a top 15 team, but this is not the usual Oklahoma with the high powered offense and the suspect defense. This is the exact opposite. And so we'll see if that defense can hold up. I think they need to turn Texas over to win this game. And I think Will Bowen or Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen are definitely capable of doing that. And obviously you have a leader like Danny Stutzman in the middle. And so I think they are certainly capable, but it's going to take a fantastic game from them. On the Texas offensive side, obviously we have to get Quinn Ewers comfortable and establish the run game. We've talked about it before. Sark loves the play action. He loves the play action to the tunnel screen or that halfback slip back screen. But we have to be able to develop the run game. Jaden Blue looks healthy. Trey Wisner is really good while Jaden Blue was out. I hope Jarrett Gibson is more healthy because he's been fantastic when he's in. Can they establish that run game? I think I definitely see some holes in this Oklahoma secondary. I think they have some good top end players, but I think they're ball hawks. And so I think they are prone to maybe make some mistakes in pursuit of being aggressive. And so if you can take advantage of that aggressiveness, I think you can do some damage and hit some chunk plays against this Oklahoma defense. But I also think, and this is why, I know Oklahoma fans were, we want Quinn because Quinn sucks and Arch is so much better. No, this is Quinn's game. We need Quinn because my concern is Oklahoma is vulnerable to those chunk plays, but you can't force them. They come naturally as your offense can move the ball and lull the Oklahoma defense to sleep. And I think that's something Quinn just does better than Arch and frankly better than probably most, or if not any quarterback in the country. And so that's what I look for with Quinn. Take the game as it comes to him, right? He had 2 interceptions last year, one on that first drive. He had a fumble, trying to get extra yards on like a 3 or 4 yard scramble. Maybe it wasn't even 3 or 4 yards, but he was pressing. In the first year, they won 49-0, so there was no need to press, right? He wasn't going to press. He was just slinging it around backyard football. But you could tell after he threw that early pick, and he had 2 picks. I think they were both early. It's kind of blurry to me. But he started to press a little bit. And that's where we've seen grow so much this year is he's not pressing. And then also he's not necessarily staying in the pocket. He's been good with his movement. He scrambles or he just moves in the pocket to make a throw. He's not just standing there taking the hit and taking the play regardless. And so I look for him to continue to show that maturity that he's shown during the Michigan game and during some of the other games this year, and really take advantage of the whole field versus Oklahoma. So I'm excited to see that. I think, again, you have the playmakers. You have Isaiah Bond, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, who is a ridiculously good freshman. Him and Colin Simmons are the 2 highest rated freshmen by PFF, right? They're ridiculous. And you have Gunnar Helm, who's been making plays this year. So you have so many weapons. Don't force it, right? We talked about, you have 2 weeks to plan for this. It's very rare that you get a bye week going into this game. And Sark is a mastermind with the schemes. And so I'm really excited to see what he comes out with. And I think it's gonna be fantastic, but don't press it. And it's not that you need to play it safe to win this game. I'm never a fan of that. You don't play to lose, you play to win. And so I think Texas needs to be aggressive, just like Oklahoma needs to be aggressive. But I think you just need to pick your spots a little more as Texas this year. Let it come naturally. And that's going to be my biggest thing is stay ahead of the sticks, stay on schedule, stay within yourself, be the team that is ranked number 1 right now. Right? Quinn Ewers doesn't need to be Jalen Milroe. Jaden Blue doesn't need to be Ashton Genty. He doesn't need to be breaking 7 tackles a play, right? Take care of the ball. Don't turn it over. Convert in the red zone. It was obviously a massive issue for Texas last year. Had first and goal on the 1-yard line and didn't get any points. Score in the red zone. Take what's given to you. Don't turn the ball over. And I think you're going to be fine. I don't want to make a prediction this game because I hate making predictions. My trainer at my new gym is an Oklahoma guy, and he busted a prediction out of me. I told him 31-21. I just kind of pulled it out of my ass. So under the spread, but still a 2-score victory. I don't know. We'll see. Nothing surprises me in this game, right? I've seen it all from Jordan Shipley's kick return touchdowns to Oklahoma scoring 3 defensive touchdowns on Texas to Case McCoy beating an Oklahoma team in those gold uniforms. I've seen it all, man, and so I'm just really excited, man. It's a great game for college football. It's in the SEC now. It's always meant more at Red River. It's always gonna mean more, and yeah, it's just gonna be fantastic. So my X factors, boring one, but gonna be the quarterbacks. Can Quinn Ewers come back from his injury healthy? And can Michael Hawkins continue to grow into his role off this bye week? How does he look coming in? And then it's going to be the turnover battle, which it often is in these games. So for Texas, take what you're given, be aggressive, but don't force the issue. And then on the Oklahoma side, getting aggressive to cause those turnovers without giving up the big plays. So it goes both ways of being aggressive, but understanding where your team has been vulnerable this season because of that aggression, and how do we make sure that doesn't happen. So turnovers, playing within yourself, and the quarterback battle is going to be where it's at for me. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Obviously cheering for Texas. I hope there's nobody videotaping me this weekend. I know my girlfriend's very worried about me going down there by myself. We're going to get after it. I can tell you that. It's a great thing because you have a bubble. You're sitting on the Texas side, and the 50,000 people immediately surrounding you would all die for you and go to war from you. And then you go 100 feet away, and those 50,000 people would murder you for looking at them. So, you got a little friendly confines. And then when you go out to the bathroom, you go to the concession stands, make sure you mind your P's and Q's. But I'm going to be as rowdy as I have ever been this weekend. And Godspeed to Texas. Godspeed to the State Fair. Godspeed to Dallas. I'm through the moon. So take a drink. I would be drinking my normal coffee, but it's damn near midnight, and it's rock and roll time, baby. We hit the road for Dallas in a few hours. As we take these last few minutes, maybe a couple things we're going to talk about on next week's show. Maybe not, I don't know, but some things I found interesting and we'll bring to you because that's what we do. We're a sports podcast. Drake May scheduled to make his first start in the NFL this weekend. Excited to see that. Deshaun Watson now has officially more lawsuits than touchdown passes since he has joined the Cleveland Browns. Shout out to Deshaun Watson for being just awful off the field and on the field. It's Jameis time. It's got to be. This guy sucks. Worst set of transactions, the trade and the contract in sports history. We'll talk about it next week. I can't wait for this game. I can't wait to see you guys, talk to you guys again. As always, grab a coffee, grab a cup, maybe pour a little Bailey's in it, and it's college football Saturday, baby.
Tune in next Sunday for another show and a cup of Joe.